Warning! This video contains spoilers for Undertale. If you still haven't played the game, I advise you to do so before you continue watching. Hello, it's Isha, and today I'd like to talk about Undertale. Since the game came out last year, a lot of fan theories have popped up with varying degrees of believability. I originally wanted to make a video only about debunking theories that are complete bullshit, yet still popular in the fandom, and then I thought maybe I should also talk about theories I actually like, just to end it on a more positive note. So, here's 6 out of 10 theories that are bullshit, and 8 that aren't. Okay, let's get the bullshit and negativity out of the way first by debunking some stuff. So, in no particular order, we've got number 1. Sans is secretly human. Okay, let's have a little quiz here. How many screen caps does it take to debunk this one? Come on, take a wild guess. And the answer is 1. Seriously, all it takes to make this so-called theory and all clickbait videos derived from it crumble is one single screen cap from the pacifist ending. You're looking at it right now. It shows Asriel using the souls he had previously absorbed at Flowey to break the barrier. He had every soul in the underground minus Frisk and Napstabooks at this point. Which means he had Sans's soul in his possession too. Sans even appears as a lost soul. Had Sans been human, this screen cap would have shown us 7 human souls around Asriel. But all I see here are 6 human souls and a bunch of monster souls. So the question is, did people who came up with and spread human sense theories play the game at all? I guess I'll never know. Number 2. Sans remembers the previous timelines. This is the one I hate the most, because even though it's not true, it's the most widespread theory. It's absolutely everywhere in fanware to the point it became a defining character trait of Fanon Sans. Now, I could rant more about how Canon Sans is better than Fanon Sans, but that would make this video longer than it needs to be. Sans does not remember previous playthroughs any more than the other monsters. Remembering everything you did in previous runs or while saves coming is Flowey's job. Flowey and Frisk remember every normal reset, but the monsters only get vague feelings of déjà vu. For example, on a second run, Toriel might correctly guess if you prefer cinnamon or butterscotch, and comment on how you looked familiar to her, and you can also have Leader Papyrus comment on how you look familiar to him, and then being like, Do I know this person? Personally, I also had Undyne comment on how she felt like we used to be friends. What sets Sans apart is that he knows that alternate timelines and the powers of determination are a thing. He also is very good at reading other people's expressions, body language, and actions, and he uses that to fill in the blanks. He doesn't need to remember everything to know something's up. However, he can only judge you on the EXP you get in the current timeline, since that's the only thing he can be certain of. He'll even let a soulless pacifist go through. If he actually remembers the genocide run that happened right before this, he would at least mention it. Even that one instance of Sans telling you not to approach his brother if you killed the later, then went back to undo it, can easily be explained by him having similar feeling of deja vu than some other monsters do. Except he knows it's most likely more than just deja vu. But Isha, you might say, he knows how many times he's killed you. And I remind you that even then, he still bases that on Frisk's or Kara's expression. He's like, that's the expression of someone who died X times in a row. He most likely guesses the number based on how frustrated they look. Also, he just straight up tells the player during the fight with him that going to the surface doesn't appeal to him anymore because, and I quote, even if we do, we'll just end up right back here without any memory of it, right? The key word here is we. He includes himself with everyone else who will get their memories erased. And at this point of the game, he has no reason to lie about that kind of things anymore. Anyway, you have to have the time-altering powers of determination like Frisk and Flowey do to be able to fully remember previous timelines, and Sans does not have those. Do we even need to prove he cannot save and reset? But the worst part is how everyone seems convinced he fully remembers even true resets. The only kind of resets in the game that even Flowey and Frisk can't remember. That's a bit too much for a skeleton without determination, isn't it? Sans is powerful, yeah, but he isn't some kind of god or something. He just has more self-awareness than the average video game character. And Sherlock Holmes level deduction powers, pretty much. Side note, how do I know Frisk doesn't remember true resets? Well, when I did a normal reset, if they turn around to shake Sans's hand before being asked to, showing they remember the previous playthrough, plus they could skip a few scenes later on. However, I checked and these things don't happen if you play again right after a true reset. So, doing a true reset doesn't just erase Flowey's memories, but Frisk as well. Anyway, I wouldn't be against, like, having Sans be able to leave notes to himself across timelines or something of that nature, but fully remembering everything is just too much. Okay, this one was a doozy. Let's go to the next. Number 3. The skeletons blushing blue and orange, and Papyrus using orange magic. Okay, this is more of a fan art pet peeve, but it also needs debunking. While we don't have any canon example of Sans blushing, we do have just that for Papyrus, and it looks like this. And it's not orange, it's just a regular cartoon blush. Also, he canonically uses blue magic, not orange. Just saying. Okay, moving on. Number 4. Gaster had a hand in the determination experiment. This is the other one I hate the most. True Lab entry number 5 clearly shows that Alphys discovered and named determination. Also, she started her work on it after becoming the royal scientist. Therefore, long after whatever happened to the previous one. Remember that one Gaster follower mentioning how it took Asgore a long time to hire a replacement? Seriously, stop attributing Alphys' work to other characters, people. Especially characters who don't even fully exist in the Undertale verse anymore. Gaster's whole thing is that he was cut from the game and erased from time, so that even though there's still traces of him in the code, he cannot have any influence on the plot. Unlike, Alphys, who is there and has a very important role in the plot. Number 5. Undyne being injected with determination. I haven't seen this one in a while. Maybe people realize that Alphys wouldn't actually do that to Undyne. Anyway, it came from the fact that when Undyne dies, she starts melting like an amalgamate before turning to dust. But why would Alphys give her determination? Undyne didn't fall down, and Alphys already had troubles telling her the truth on relatively minor things, so telling her anything about the determination experiment is out of the question. Not to mention, Alphys had no practical reasons to inject her determination, except maybe on a genocide run, but she doesn't have the time to do that then. Plus, Undyne doesn't melt only on a genocide run, she does so on any run where she is killed. You could have been a pacifist up until that point, and she will still melt. On a timeline where nothing indicated you could be a threat, and Undyne could need a power-up. Sorry for the lack of footage here, but I really didn't want to look at Undyne's neutral death again. It's actually worse than her genocide one. Anyway, moving on again. Number 6. Any theory stating that Sans bleeds anything other than ketchup. Why? Well, because I'm a filthy cheater. The justification is in the second part of the video, which I'm gonna start right now. Theories I actually like. Number 1. Senses blood is actually ketchup. One of my favorite Tumblr blogs posted this to point out that not only did Toby make determination and the ketchup sense offers you, and sometimes drinks, different shades of red, but he also made the skeleton's fatal wound in the genocide one the same shade as the ketchup. And no, it's not blood either. I mean, knowing Toby's attention to details in his game, I'm certain that had he wanted to show actual blood, he would have used yet another shade of red for it instead of reusing the ketchup one. Also, monsters don't bleed anyway. Number 2. Possible reason why when you kill things, your kill count doesn't go up, but your LV does. Apparently people have been coming up with various theories to explain this. Personally, I just always assumed that since he walked out of the battle screen, then died, and we know he does die off screen since turning to dust sound effects plays. It messes with your stats a little. Like, he technically didn't die in the battle screen, so your kill count doesn't go up, but you still caused his death, so your LV increases anyway. I guess it could be interpreted as him trolling you one last time, but for once it might not be completely intentional. Maybe. Number 3. Kara is a narrator and flavor text provider. Other people have written very long and detailed posts about this one, and they all do a better job at it than I could ever do. I'm gonna link the wiki article about it in an annotation right here and in the description so you can read for yourselves. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's pretty obvious that Kara is the narrator in the genocide route. So why wouldn't they narrate the other routes as well? As far as I'm concerned, this theory is 100% canon. Number 4. Megalovania isn't Sense's battle theme, it's yours. I remember seeing a few arguments in favor of this mini theory, such as the title fits the general player more than it does Sense, or just song that might play when you fight Sense exists. But I think the best argument in favor of it is that Megalovania is the only song in the game that isn't linked to any other track in some way. It's not the only song that preceded Undertale, but I'm pretty sure it's the only one that doesn't contain a leitmotif heard anywhere else in the soundtrack. Like a lot of people do in video games, Toby reuses the same leitmotifs a lot, but not here. Reusing the same melodies and leitmotifs helps bring this world together. It's a way to show everything and everyone here is part of a whole. But Megalovania isn't part of this giant wave of interconnected songs. It's an outsider, just like you are in the underground. Number 5. Alphys has electric powers. Well, this is just straight up canon. When all the main monsters defend Frisk from Flowey's friendliness pellets, we can recognize Toriel and Ascor's flames, the brothers' bolts and Undyne's spears, So the lightning bolts must come from Alphys. I wonder if she can, charge her phone with that? Number 6. Monster Kid can learn fire magic. Okay, I'll admit, this is just my own headcanon. It comes from me wondering why a reptile-like creature would live in Snowdin of all places. You might hang out with Kid in Waterfall more, but they actually live in Snowdin, which is otherwise populated by monsters who either have fur or are explicitly stated to be immune to cold. So my headcanon is that Kid is actually a dragon-like creature and uses fire magic to keep themselves warm even though they haven't learned how to use this magic in battle yet. There isn't really any proof against or for this theory, but the image of Kid learning how to breathe fire is really cool and I need fan art of it. Number 7. Papyrus can use the Gaster Blasters, but won't. This is hinted at in the game if you spare him on a genocide move. I'll link a video showing this in an annotation right here and in the description. It's implied Papyrus didn't use them on you in the other routes either because he was holding back. Or maybe because they were part of his special attack that the annoying dog stole. Number 8. Sans and Papyrus are related to Gaster. Now, I'm not only referring to Dadster theories. There are a lot of possibilities here. We know there's a link between these characters because of the font-related names and the Gaster Blasters being used by Sans and accessible to Papyrus as in previously. What we don't know is what that link is. Some possibilities I've heard about include Gaster being the skeleton's dad or creator or uncle or even brother, and all of them have good potential. Also, if they all shared the same last name, it would be another reason why Gaster Blasters are called that. It's a family thing. Personally, I like to think that maybe Gaster adopted the brothers. I mean, if the mystery man we all assume is Gaster actually is him, he looks more like a goop monster crossed with no face from Spirited Away than like a skeleton to me. It could just be the effect of being in the void for so long, though. Am I wrong? Maybe, but we'll most likely never know for sure, and I'm surprisingly okay with that. Dr. Gaster is all about the mystery after all. Well, this concludes this video. If I forgot anything, please do tell me. Pat yourself on the back for making it to the end. Isha out.